So in this video, we are going to introduce a way to categorize functions. Now, two ways we can categorize these is one-to-one functions or many-to-one functions. Now, the first thing I've written down is that all functions pass something called the vertical line test. So that means that when we draw a vertical line anywhere along our graph, it will basically just pass through the graph once. And this tells us a lot about the inputs and the outputs as well. Now, we said that with functions, you take one value, it inputs, and it gives you some unique y value. So every x value you input in, you get a y value out. Now, functions will have this, and we show this using our vertical line test. Now, imagine we drew a whole bunch of vertical lines on this exponential function I have here. What this tells us, because it's passing through just one time, each x value here maps to a y value. Every x value here maps to a unique y value. Now, with this particular case, there's a one-to-one correspondence between the domain and the range. So across the entire domain, across all of the different x values, we get a unique y value. Now, with this particular graph on the left, the exponential, it also passes what we call the horizontal line test. So if we were to draw a whole bunch of horizontal lines here, let's do them in another color, you will notice this exact same thing happening. We get this one-to-one relationship again. So basically, if it passes the vertical line test, it's a function. If it passes the horizontal line test, it's called a one-to-one function. Now, what this means is that for every value in the domain, so for every basically x value, there is a one-to-one correspondence in the range. So for every x value, there's a unique y value. So an exponential is an example of a one-to-one. Now, if we look at our quadratic on the right here, we can see that it passes the vertical line test. So every single time along here, we get an x value giving us just one y value. So it is a function, but what you'll notice is that if I draw horizontal lines through here, what differs between this one and the one on the left, the exponential, is that multiple x values produce the same y value. Do you see that? Multiple x values. So multiple x values, let's call this x1 and x2, produce the exact same y value up here. So we need to put this in a different category. This thing is called a many-to-one function. And with many-to-one functions, we basically notice that multiple x values can give the same y value, the same output. So multiple inputs can give the same output. So multiple inputs, so x values in the domain, give the same output, y value. So this is how we can distinguish between two different types of functions. We have a one-to-one. Now, a good way to sort of read this is that basically every one x value gives one y value. So the first one talks about the x, the second one talks about the y value. Here, it's the same way. The x comes before the y. Same as with our coordinates. Many-to-one, many x values give one y value. And the vertical line test distinguishes whether this is a function or something called a relation, which we'll introduce next time in the next video. The horizontal line test tells us whether it is a one-to-one or a many-to-one function. But that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.